Thousands of years, sailors spoke of them in whispers. They carved images of them into wood and stone, painted them on maps with trembling hands, and told stories that made even the bravest captains uneasy. They called them sea monsters, krakens, demons of the deep, but they were real, more real than anyone could have imagined, and for almost all of human history, we never saw one alive. Not once, not a single living glimpse. The giant squid existed in a realm so alien, so completely removed from human experience, that it might as well have been swimming on another planet. Think about that for a moment. We are a species that has climbed the highest mountains, crossed the hottest deserts, and planted flags on the moon. We have photographed distant galaxies billions of light years away and split atoms invisible to the naked eye. We have mapped continents and sequenced DNA and built machines that think. But the giant squid, a creature that shares our own planet, that swims in the same oceans where we sail our ships and catch our fish, remained completely hidden from us, not because it was small or rare in the way we typically think of rare things, but because it lived in a place where humans simply cannot go, a place of perpetual darkness, a place of crushing pressure, a place so deep and so cold and so utterly foreign that our bodies would be destroyed long before we reached it. The deep ocean is the largest habitat on Earth. It covers more than half of our planet's surface and contains 95% of the biosphere's livable space. Yet we know less about it than we know about the surface of Mars. The giant squid makes its home in the mesopelagic zone, sometimes called the twilight zone, which stretches from about 200 meters to 1,000 meters below the surface. At these depths, sunlight fades to nothing. The pressure increases to levels that would crush human bones. The temperature drops to just above freezing. And in this darkness, in this cold, in this hostile and unreachable void, the giant squid hunts and feeds and lives and dies, completely invisible to us. For centuries, the only proof we had that giant squids existed at all came from the dead. Dead specimens that washed up on beaches, their massive bodies already decomposing, their flesh pale and broken. Dead squid found in the stomachs of sperm whales, those deep-diving predators that can hold their breath for over an hour and descend more than 2,000 meters into the abyss. The whales became our only witnesses. They came back to the surface, bearing scars, circular marks left by the suckers of giant squid, some as large as dinner plates. Those scars told us something was down there, something enormous, something fighting back, but we couldn't see it. We could only see what it left behind. Scientists collected these remains with a mixture of excitement and frustration. They measured the tentacles, some stretching over 12 meters long. They examined the eyes, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, each one the size of a basketball, perfectly evolved to gather every possible photon of light in the darkness. They studied the sharp, parrot-like beak that could tear through flesh and the hundreds of powerful suckers lined with tiny teeth. Everything about the giant squid's anatomy spoke of a creature built for a world humans would never know. But anatomy wasn't life. Anatomy wasn't behavior. Anatomy couldn't tell them how these creatures moved through the water, how they hunted, how they communicated, or even how many of them existed. For all our scientific advancement, the giant squid remained a ghost. The frustration grew as the decades passed. By the 20th century, we had submarines and underwater cameras and sophisticated sonar equipment. We had sent humans to the deepest point in the ocean, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters down. We had technology that should have made finding a giant squid simple. After all, we weren't looking for something microscopic. Adult giant squids can reach lengths of 13 meters or more, with some estimates suggesting they might grow even larger. They are among the largest invertebrates on Earth. Finding one should have been easy, but it wasn't. Year after year, expedition after expedition returned with nothing. The giant squid continued to elude us, as if it existed in a dimension just slightly removed from our own. Part of the problem was that we didn't know what we were looking for. Dead giant squids looked like nightmares, pale and limp and alien. But what did they look like alive? How did they behave? Traditional fishing methods occasionally caught juvenile specimens, but these encounters were accidents, and the stress usually killed the animals quickly. Deep-sea trolling nets sometimes pulled up dead or dying adults, but by then they were damaged and in shock. Scientists tried baited cameras, dropping them into the depths with lights and food, hoping to attract a giant squid. But the lights seemed to drive them away. Everything we tried was based on human assumptions, human methods, human technology designed for a human world. And the giant squid did not live in a human world. The breakthrough that everyone was waiting for finally came in 2004, but not in the way anyone expected. A Japanese marine biologist named Tsunami Kubadera spent years studying the feeding habits of sperm whales, following them, watching where they dove, mapping their behavior. He realized that if you wanted to find giant squid, you had to think like a sperm whale. You had to go where the whales went, and you had to do it quietly, patiently, without disturbing the environment. Kubadera attached a camera and a baited lined to a long tether, and dropped it into the deep waters off Japan's Ogasawara Islands, a place where sperm whales were known to hunt. Benny waited. 900 meters down. In the cold darkness, something grabbed the bait. The camera, triggered by the movement, began taking photographs, automatically one frame every few seconds. When Kubodera pulled up the line for hours later, he found a piece of giant squid tentacle still attached to the hook, torn off during the creature's struggle to escape. But he also had something far more valuable. He had first photographs ever taken of a living giant squid in its natural habitat. The images were grainy and dark, but they were revolutionary. They showed a creature that looked nothing like the pale, ghostly bodies that washed up on beaches. This giant squid was reddish-brown, its body muscular and powerful, its tentacles extending with precision and purpose. It was hunting. It was alive. It was real. The photograph sent shockwaves through the scientific community and captured the imagination of people around the world. But they were just photographs, still images frozen in time. The next goal was clear. Someone needed to capture video footage. Someone needed to see a giant squid moving, swimming, existing in real time. That moment came in 2012, when Kubodera returned to the waters. But here's the haunting part. Even now, even after those first photographs and that first video, we still know almost nothing about giant squids. We don't know how many exist in the world's oceans. We don't know their full range or their population structure. We don't know how they reproduce or how long they live. We don't know if they are solitary creatures or if they gather in groups. We don't know how they communicate or if they even have social structures. Every few years, another team manages to capture footage or photographs, and each encounter reveals something new, something unexpected. But the gaps in our knowledge remain vast. After all this time, after all our technology, the giant squid is still largely a mystery. This should humble us. In an age where we often feel like we've conquered nature, where we track hurricanes from space and predict earthquakes with seismographs, where we modify genes and clone animals and harness nuclear energy, the giant squid reminds us that there are still things beyond our reach. There are still creatures living their entire lives without ever knowing we exist, doing things we can barely imagine in places we can barely access. The ocean is not our domain. It tolerates our presence at its surface, but below, in the deep, it belongs to something else entirely. The giant squid also forces us to confront an uncomfortable immense truth about discovery and observation. Every time we send down a camera, every time we illuminate the darkness with our lights and our technology, we are changing what we're trying to observe. The giant squid we capture on film is not behaving naturally. It's reacting to us, to our intrusion, to the sudden appearance of light in a world that has never known it. We are seeing the giant squid's defensive response, its curiosity, its confusion, or its aggression. But we are not seeing its normal life. We are not seeing what it does when we're not there, and we probably never will. The very act of looking, which changes what we see. Scientists who study deep-sea creatures often talk about this paradox. They spend their careers trying to understand animals that evolution designed to be unobserved. They develop new technologies, quieter submersibles, dimmer lights, more sensitive cameras. But there's always a fundamental barrier. To see something, you need light. And in the deep ocean, light means presence. Light means intrusion. The creatures that live there have never evolved to deal with bright illumination. When our lights switch on, we're not just observing them. We're attacking their senses, overwhelming them with stimuli their nervous systems were never designed to process. Imagine if aliens suddenly appeared in your living room with lights 1,000 times brighter than the sun. That's what we do too. The giant squid every time we point a camera at it. Yet despite this, despite knowing that we can never truly observe them without affecting them, we keep trying. We keep going back to the deep ocean, keep lowering our cameras and our submersibles, keep searching. Why? Perhaps because a giant squid represents something essential about the human spirit. We are a curious species, sometimes to our own detriment. We cannot leave mysteries alone. We cannot accept that something exists beyond our understanding. We need to see, to know, to document, to explain. The giant squid, by existing just out of reach, by living in a place we cannot easily access, by surviving for millennia without our knowledge, challenges everything we think we know about a place in the world. And that challenge is irresistible. There's also something profoundly moving about the dedication of the scientists who hunt for giant squids. Tsunami Kubodera spent more than a decade trying to capture those first photographs, returning to the same waters again and again, adjusting his methods, learning from each failure. Other researchers have devoted entire careers to understanding creatures they might see only once, if they're lucky. They spend years analyzing dead specimens, measuring tentacles, studying beak structure, examining stomach contents. They board ships and descend in submersibles and sit in the cold and the dark for hours waiting for something that might never appear. They do this not for money or fame, but because they believe that understanding these creatures matters. They believe that every species has value. that every form of life deserves to be studied and protected and understood, even if it lives somewhere we can never go. The giant squid has also become a symbol of ocean conservation. For too long, humans have treated the ocean as an infinite resource, a place where we can dump our waste and harvest whatever we want without consequence. We've overfished entire species to near extinction. We've destroyed coral reefs with pollution and climate change. We've filled the water with plastic and chemicals and noise, and we've done all of this without really knowing what else lives down there, what other creatures we might be harming, what ecosystems we might be destroying. The giant squid reminds us that the ocean is not empty. Below the surface, beyond our sight, there is life, in a complex, ancient, remarkable life, and most of it we've never seen. When people watch footage of a giant squid for the first time, their reactions are remarkably consistent. There's usually silence first, a kind of awe that makes words seem inadequate. Then there are questions. How big is it? Where was this filmed? How deep are there more of them? The questions reflect a fundamental shift in perspective. Before seeing a living giant squid, it's easy to think of the ocean as a mostly empty place with some fish and some whales and not much else. After seeing a giant squid, you realize that the ocean contains wonders we can't even imagine. Creatures so strange and magnificent that they seem like they belong in myth rather than reality. And if giant squids are real, what else might be down there? What other animals exist in the deep that we haven't discovered yet? Marine biologists estimate that we've explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. 5%. That means 95% remains unseen, unknown, unexplored. The giant squid lived in that 95% for millions of years. How many other species are still there, still waiting to be discovered? How many creatures swim in the darkness, hunt in the cold, live and breed and die without ever entering human awareness? The thought is both thrilling and terrifying. We live on a planet that is mostly water, and we know almost nothing about what's in it. The giant squid's eyes deserve special mention, because they tell us so much about the world it inhabits. At up to 30 centimeters in diameter, they are the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, larger than those of any whale, any fish, any creature that has ever lived. Why would an animal need eyes that large? Because in the deep ocean, light is the most precious resource. Even the faintest glow from bioluminescent organisms, even the dimmest trace of sunlight filtering down from above, needs to be captured and used. Those enormous eyes are essentially biological telescopes, designed to gather as many photons as possible and transform them into usable information. They can detect the presence of a sperm whale from 120 meters away, giving the squid precious seconds to escape before the predator arrives. In a world of almost total darkness, those eyes mean the difference between life and death. But those same eyes also make the giant squid vulnerable to our intrusion. When we shine our bright lights into the deep, we're overwhelming sensory organs that evolved to detect the faintest glimmers. We're temporarily blinding creatures that depend on their vision for survival. Some researchers have suggested that this might be why giant squid seem so aggressive when they encounter submersibles. They're not attacking out of predatory instinct. They're confused, frightened, unable to process what's happening to them. They're lashing out at something that doesn't make sense in their world, something that shouldn't exist. The relationship between giant squids and sperm whales is one of the great dramas of the deep ocean, though we've only glimpsed fragments of it. Sperm whales are the giant squid's primary predator, diving to extraordinary depths to hunt them. The battles between these two titans must be spectacular, though no human has ever witnessed one. We see the evidence in the scars on the whales, heads and bodies, circular marks left by squid suckers, some old and faded, some fresh and raw. We see it in the squid beaks found in whale stomachs, sometimes dozens at a time, evidence of successful hunts. But we don't see the chase, the struggle, the moment when predator meets prey in the darkness. We can only imagine what it must be. Like when a 50-ton whale confronts a giant squid in the deep, two creatures perfectly evolved for that environment, locked in a battle for survival that has been playing out for millions of years. The first time humans saw a giant squid alive was 2004. 2004. That was the same year Facebook was founded. The same year the Mars rovers Spirit and Opportunity landed on the Red Planet and sent back thousands of photographs of an alien world. We were exploring Mars, a planet millions of kilometers away, while simultaneously seeing a giant squid alive for the first time on our own planet. The irony is almost painful. We had to develop space-age technology just to catch a glimpse of a creature that lives in Earth's oceans. The giant squid was more remote to us than the surface of another planet. This is what makes the giant squid so special, so important, and so haunting. It represents everything we don't know about our own world. It represents the limits of human exploration and human understanding. It represents the profound otherness of the deep ocean, a place that operates by rules completely different from the ones we know. The giant squid evolved without us, lived without us, and would continue just fine. If we disappeared tomorrow, it doesn't need us. It doesn't want us. It exists in a realm we can visit only briefly, and only with tremendous effort and sophisticated technology. We are the aliens in its world, not the other way around. Nothing about the giant squid was meant to be seen by humans. Everything about it, from its habitat to its biology to its behavior, evolved in our absence. For millions of years, it swam in the darkness, hunted in the cold, lived and died without ever being observed by conscious eyes that could understand what they were seeing. And then we arrived with our cameras and our lights and our insatiable curiosity. We pulled back the curtain on a mystery that nature had kept hidden since the beginning of time. We looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back at us with eyes the size of dinner plates. The question we should ask ourselves now is not whether we can see the giant squid, because we've proven that we can. The question is whether we should, whether our need to know, to document, to understand, justifies the intrusion into a world that has remained separate from us for so long. There's no easy answer. The knowledge we gain from studying giant squids could help us understand ocean ecosystems, could inform conservation efforts, could teach us about evolution and adaptation and survival in extreme environments. But every time we descend into the deep with our technology, we're disturbing something ancient and alien, something that was doing just fine without us. Perhaps the most appropriate response to the giant squid is humility. Humility that, despite all our achievements, despite all our technology, despite all our intelligence and creativity, there are still things in this world that remain mostly unknown to us. The giant squid is a reminder that Earth is still wild, still mysterious, still capable of surprising us. It's a reminder that we share this planet with creatures that are so different from us, that live in environments so hostile to us, that we might as well be different species living on different worlds. And maybe that's beautiful. Maybe the fact that the giant squid exists beyond our easy reach, that it maintains its secrets even now, is something worth preserving. Maybe some mysteries should stay mysterious. Maybe some things should remain unseen.